So everyone's going to have to let me know how to vote for our AI national people who are running for office. And what everybody thinks.
Okay.
Because I have to cast a vote.
Okay.
We have until September, so we'll probably discuss it our next meeting on August 11th. Because they're talking about John Hart. He's from Texas. He's going to be president-elect if he's elected. And they want to vote as a block, large states. And that's what Joe's going to talk about.
Okay.
Just to give you a heads up. Then the at-large, I don't know if there's any particular people you guys like, or secretary.
Yeah.
Steve, the webinar is being recorded already.
Okay. Ooh, sorry. Oops. Thank you, Stacey.
We have editing tools. There's editing tools. You're good. All right, so we have about 10 people who are in. We're still waiting for a few people. So welcome to everyone. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. We're just giving everyone a few minutes to get in.
You look good, Andrew.
Oh, thank you. I was wishing to get out of my work.
So we can do some warm-up questions. Raise your hand if you're still at work. No? Oh, William, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Oh, it looks like Jerome raised his hand. I guess Jerome's still at work too?
Yeah, I'm asking him if he has a question right now.
Oh.
I assume some people working from their homes and others at their office.
Right.
Hey, Lorianne, how do you keep the kids out?
Hopefully have enough adults to intercept them on their way here. One of them can't move yet, so that helps them.
Helpful.
For everyone who has joined, if you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to use the Q&A box, which is at the bottom of your screen if you're using a computer. If you hover down the bottom, you'll see Q&A there, and you're welcome to ask questions there. Thank you.
Hey, John, are you still doing Steam Tank?
I am still doing Steam Tank.
Yes, I remember meeting you down at the Army base. I think
Which
Lauren
one?
was there too, and Stacey.
Which Army base? I was going to quite a few of them back then.
Ah, can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, it was either Picatinny,
It
Lakehurst,
wasn't Picatinny.
Fort Dix.
No,
It wasn't the Ed Tour out of state, was it? Was it one of
No.
our Ed Tours?
this was last year. We did it on I think a Saturday or a Friday. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it matters that I can't remember. That's
I can't
what
either.
matters.
Don't feel bad.
Oh, yeah, we're having some senior moments, that's for sure. But
I
other
think
than
we all
that,
are.
yeah, we're still doing Steam Tank. In fact, we're going to do it virtual for the first time this year. So, which is going to be interesting. Should be good. Should be good.
Well. And Lauren, thank you for putting this on. This is great.
Oh, well, my pleasure. So I guess we should get on with the show. Thank you everyone for coming. Welcome to AIA New Jersey's Equity in Early Education. If we can see it, we can achieve it lecture. The people that you see here, I will introduce in a moment, but we all gathered together and had a really in-depth conversation about the results that came out from NCARB's annual diversity surveys. And what we come to realize is that over the last several decades, the needle isn't moving when it comes to diversity in architecture. We are the last professional group of people that haven't seen diversity change at all. So that means that we have to actively do something about it. So when we met together and talked about it, we decided to break it down into stages of life. So this one's the first one, K to 12. So let me introduce our panelists. The first panelist is me, Lauren, I'm Lauren Harris, Associate AIA. I currently serve as the Regional Associate Director for the state of New Jersey. And what that means is I'm New Jersey's representative at AIA's national level for people who are unlicensed. And I also serve as the chair of AIA New Jersey's Women in Architecture Committee. And I do quite a bit of work with children around the state of New Jersey through Steam Tank, which you'll learn about later on, but also through other projects like AIA New Jersey Kids Design Day. Also who you will meet soon is Andrew. Andrew serves as the county architect for Passaic County in New Jersey, working with county government on projects and renovations. Some projects range from historic Day Mansion in Wayne, New Jersey, other historic projects in Patterson. And Andrew is also a visiting professor at Pratt from 95 to 2000. And he's very interested in digital media and construction documents using Pratt. Andrew also served as a guest speaker at AIA New Jersey's Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee. Andrew also served as a board member for NOMA, and he was part of the planning committee for the 2019 NOMA National Convention in New York City. He also serves on the AIA New Jersey College Relations Committee, and he acts as a visiting juror and volunteers for K-12 outreach programs. And he is currently the 2020 president of Newark and Suburban. So thank you so much for being with us. Lori Ann Jones, AIA, is the current president of AIA Central New Jersey. She has a passion for mentoring and currently serves as the board member of the ACE Mentor Program of New Jersey. She mentors and is the team leader for over 10 years. And she has seen many ACE students enter college through her career. Lori Ann is a project manager at, is it DI Group Architecture? Throughout her career, she's worked on a bunch of projects, including K-12, higher ed, and healthcare. And merging her interest in education and career development with her affinity for design technology, Lori Ann recently began teaching CAD. And she's a new mother to her second child, but she's a mother of two. So thank you so much, Lori Ann, for being here. I know your time is really difficult with a brand new baby. So William Moses, NOMA and Associate AIA. William has over a decade of work experience as project architect. He has designed renderings for the Center for Image-Guided Intervention and Minimally Invasive Therapy at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. His work on the Farber Center was showcased in AIA New York subway exhibition. Mentoring and extensive work within the community is his primary focus outside of his work projects. He's the founding member and president of the New Jersey NOMA chapter, and he has volunteered for NAACP ACT-SO Cultural, Technology, and Scientific Olympics programs. So thank you, William, for being here with us. It's great to have you. Tiffany Milner, RA. She's a registered architect since 2009. She's a wife, a mother, an artist, an author, a director, a graphic designer, a manager of all genre-defying band, and spiritual gardener. That is a lot of hats that you are wearing, Tiffany. So thank you so much for being here. She serves as the project manager and architectural designer at JKRP Architects and Vitetta. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. She is also a design consultant at AUX Collective, and she currently devotes her energy as the Director of Communications for the ACE Mentor Program of America, and as a consultant in various professional capacities, including the Executive Director for the ACE Mentor Program of Greater Philadelphia. So thank you, Tiffany, for being here. Stacey Ruelklisch Aia is the principal of a firm named after herself. She's also the AIA NJ Equity Chair, past president of AIA New Jersey, and the architect lead of Northern New Jersey. She's the past New Jersey IDP coordinator, an associate's director, and women in architecture chair and K-12 education chair. Stacey has been designing and providing K-12 architectural education programs for underprivileged communities since 1992. She has been nationally recognized in 2007 at the AIA 150 New Jersey Blueprint. And Stacey has won an enormous amount of awards, many of which are not mentioned here. So thank you, Stacey, so much for being here. Steve Lazarus, AIA. Steve is both president of AIA New Jersey and the Access Architectural Group in Englewood, New Jersey. He's the 2020 president of AIA New Jersey. And Steve feels the most important topics for 2020 are the political situation, the socioeconomic and environmental issues facing the country. And he feels that we must think about our role as architects in engaging with questions of climate change, material depletion, national identity, and so much more. So Steve feels that we need to engage children in all walks of life, continue our involvement in schools, expand our reach to churches and scout groups, and the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. And he also plans to work with each section president to expand this program in 2020 and beyond. So thank you so much, Steve, for being here. John Henry, lead GA. John is a NASA Einstein Fellow and a lead Green Associate with 26 years of experience in public education. He's currently the STEAM and Sustainable School Specialist for New Jersey School Boards Association. John is the creator and program developer for STEAM Tank, which was recognized by the New Jersey Audubon for the Patricia Kane Environmental Education Award and by the Department of Environmental Protection for the Governor's Environmental Excellence Award. John serves on the board of directors for the U.S. Green Building Council, the New Jersey chapter, and he served as an advisor and curriculum writer and manager of New Jersey's CTE Green Program of Study in Sustainable Design, Green Construction, and Sustainable Energy for the New Jersey Department of Education and the New Jersey Council of Vocational Technical Schools. So thank you, John, for being here. So I'm going to start off with an easy question, what I'll call a softball. So this is what the internet thinks an architect is. So what do you guys have to say about what the internet thinks an architect is?
Well, my opinion is America's very ignorant as to what architects do and what architects are. And I wouldn't expect the internet to be any better. Don't ask me why, but we have not been very good at reaching out to the public and educating about architecture. They know more about builders, but architects many times were asked, what do you do? And it just I'm flabbergasted. And I realize as architects, we do not promote ourselves enough and get out to the public. I think we're starting to do a better job here in New Jersey with the K through 12 and going out and telling kids who don't even know, some don't even know what architects are, explaining what architecture is. And we're starting to make inroads slowly, but I think we need to make larger inroads.
So do you see yourself in any part of this meme?
Well, the pictures are covering a lot of this up.
Oh, you can move the pictures over, but it's basically, well, we'll go on to the characters more, but you know, society thinks that we make housing developments. Contractors think that we play with Legos all day. I think I'm building falling water every single day, but really what I'm doing is toilet plans. I don't think any of this actually depicts anything of what we do on a daily basis. Lorianne, does this speak to you at all? Tiffany, Stacey?
Well, absolutely not. I mean, it's a great meme, but honestly, this is one of those things that if I were to show it to my A students, they would be so disconnected from it, and they still wouldn't even understand what an architect does because they wouldn't be able to see themselves in any of this.
Yeah.
So this is the premise of our meeting here today, is that if they can't see themselves in what an architect is or what an architect does, and they can't even put their finger on it, how are we inspiring people to be an architect if they think that we're just getting girls or playing with Legos or, you know, making toilet plans? So honestly, what we really need to do is a better job at explaining what it is that we do at a very basic level.
I have a question. All the people on this panel who are architects, how did you learn about architecture? How did you decide to become an architect? Did you have a parent who was an architect, or did you do it the hard way and learn it some way in school, or you admired buildings, or how did you become an architect? Because I don't know if things have changed from then to now.
Well, one way I learned about being an architect, well, the way I learned about being an architect was my first exposure to what an architect was, believe it or not, was Ebony magazine. So Ebony magazine is a magazine that's been out for quite a number of years. They focus on the life of African Americans, celebrities, and so on. And there was an article in there, believe it or not, about female Black architects. And they had their buildings, and they had the Black female architects with their buildings. And I just thought, I said, wow, I said, what is this? This is so amazing that these women are building and designing these buildings. And then, you know, fast forward to high school, in a shop class, I took a shop class called Architecture Design, but it was a shop class. So the premise of the shop class, we would design something quickly on paper, and the majority of the shop class that we had to build a 1/4 inch wood frame suburban house. It took probably half the semester, so I had to do studs, rafters, window framing, and I was one of the 3 finalists in the class that actually won. And we got to exhibit in the mall in Brooklyn, the Grammy Plaza and King's Plaza. So that was kind of like my kick. And then, you know, I didn't know what to do from there. And then when I finally got to architecture school, it was tough. And thinking back, if I had maybe a book or somebody in my life or one of these programs that we're going to talk about today kind of guiding me on the path, I think I could capture more young people to be architects rather than the 1 in 30 that I may have known that have came up the same way I did. So, you know, it's a tough run.
I guess for me, my parents are from the British West Indies, a country called Guyana, and my grandmother actually worked in an architecture firm. So you can imagine back in the day, as I'm told the story, women weren't supposed to be architects. So the fact that she worked at this firm, was a draftswoman, and then later came to run this gentleman's firm as they were doing notable university projects, you know, significant buildings. So I while that wasn't ingrained in me as I was growing up, it wasn't something I consciously remember as a kid, but I understand that it has an awareness that my father had, being her son. He knew about architecture. So I had access to all of the things that you normally think about, like playing with Legos, playing with Kinects, building toys, not just, Barbies and dolls. I had, all sorts of variety of toys, and architecture and building just was something that I was interested in. I remember as a kid, ShopRite used to have these magazines that had house plans, and I used to always ask my parents to buy them. And for some reason, I was just, as a kid, was really interested in looking at all these house plans. And when I went to high school, I was doing a lot of after-school programs that are related to engineering. So Odyssey of the Mind, I don't know if that's popular today still, but I used to do Odyssey of the Mind and build robots and sorting devices. And then did an about-face and started taking architectural drafting my junior and senior year in high school. Because my father had that awareness of architecture, and he actually wasn't an architect, but he worked as a related field in management consulting. He had access to architects, and I was fortunate that he was able to get me an internship at an architecture firm while I was in high school and be able to experience what an office was like. So those collection of things is how I came to architecture, and got an experience ahead of time, kind of like how Andrew was pointing out. I got an opportunity to experience a little bit of what the profession was like firsthand before I went there. Didn't have ACE, didn't have any of these other programs that we're talking about tonight, but at least I got to talk to an architect and see what an office was like. And then came to have that connection brought up to me that, hey, my grandmother was doing this, and kind of have that familial collection there.
How about Tiffany or William?
Yes, to piggyback off Lori, I think I was introduced, I think I kind of stumbled into architecture. For me, I was, I grew up, I have a lot of brothers and sisters. I have 4 brothers and 4 sisters, so I have a pretty big family. And we grew up, and each one of us had at least one toy for Christmas. So I remember getting an action figure one year, and I wanted more things to go with the action figure. So I just started making my own stuff, so I started making, little homes and cars out of cardboard or whatever material that I could find. And that carried on with me for a bunch of years. And I started drawing these things. And when I got into high school, I think I got accepted for another high school. And I went to a technical high school instead in Wayne, New Jersey. And I was able to do drafting at that high school. And there was a teacher there that was doing drafting. He was a Black architect. And I never saw one of these guys, or never even knew what architecture was. I wanted to be a car designer. And he sort of coached me through a bunch of years, and sort of mentored me into doing art and coaxed me into going into architecture. And ever since then, it's just a spark of like, I wanted to sort of see or test my own limits of design, see if I could do this or see if I could do that, and to do it on a computer, and there was just a bunch of different aspects that I thought I could accomplish while doing it. But coming up, I got into a lot of like, maybe a lot of closed doors, a lot of people saying, no, you shouldn't be an architect because there's not enough Black architects. You won't make it. You'd have a struggle throughout your whole entire life. And I just wouldn't listen to those people that would say those things, because I didn't believe that was the case. I mean, I didn't think that it would be. And then I stumbled on a bunch of other people, a bunch of other Black people that are into architecture during my college years. And from there, it started to stem into, meeting with Andrew Thompson and a bunch of other people. And that's when I discovered NOMA. There was a whole bunch of Black architects. And from there on, I was excited, very, very ecstatic to actually, to see these people in doing these roles and having myself as a young man aspire to do some of these things that they're doing. I thought it was I thought I was on an island by myself at first. But to see these people do it and to do it successfully, I was very impressed, amazed, and inspired by, you know, seeing some of these people. But coming up, there was no one. I didn't see anyone. We didn't have any role models or in my family, I'm probably the second one that actually went to college. So it's, in my neighborhood, it wasn't the thing. It wasn't, everyone would go to school, get out of high school, and start working. So it wasn't until I started going out of my own zone and started meeting people and that happened later on in life, as opposed to, you know, that was me being diligent enough to actually stay within this, because there's not a love it. You have to love architecture. It's not like, it's not going to love you back. So it's like, you have to love it.
Very true.
And so that love create my own diligence to stay with it, even through the rough patches where I said, there has been a bunch of times, I can tell you now, that I said, I am not doing this anymore. And I'm going to give up. I'm going to really give it up. And no, you know, and you stick with it because you start to see things, and then you start to realize things. And as you get older, you get to, even now today, I get to see more African Americans into architecture, and that's inspiring and inspirational for me. That's my story.
How about Tiffany?
Oh man. Well, I'm in Philadelphia, guys, but I'm born and raised in Jersey. I'm a Jersey girl, so I'm a product of Linden, New Jersey, and you know, it's interesting seeing, you know, the distinct juxtaposition of coming from, you know, a more suburban, well-supported school district versus where I am now and what I'm trying to, you know, combat in terms of Philadelphia with the city. But so my story is I fell into architecture too. I was actually a musician for most of my high school career. There's a vocational school associated with, they call it career technical education now, but it's vocational. And that's where I took a CAD class. So it was just machinery. It had nothing to do with the built environment, but that's what my guidance counselor suggested. And the fact that I even had a guidance counselor, you know, was a blessing. So I had someone to talk to, and he knew that I was interested in art and I was interested in science, and I was, you know, good at math, whatever that means. And, you know, they were like, oh, you should be an architect, because that's what goes hand in hand. That's what makes sense, you know, to adults to tell students. So, okay, fine. So I absolutely had no idea what I was getting myself into. I had no idea of it being a male-dominated, white-dominated field. I had no idea, and it really wasn't, you know, a concern of mine. You know, I went to a more of a, you know, diverse school, you know, than not, and I never thought that I couldn't do anything. I never was told that there were barriers. So I went into it, and I went to Temple University, and, you know, Temple chose me. I chose Temple. I fell in love with architecture and, you know, the rigors of the studio environment, and it just becomes almost like a religion. You truly kind of, you know, love it, and you dedicate your life to it, regardless of, you know, who may tell you one thing at a jury, who may rub you the wrong way, who may feel they're not as supportive, you know, because, you know, the whole architecture, you know, experience in college, that's a whole nother, you know, discussion we could have. My God, you know, PTSD, right? So it's like, you know, but, and then to go through that, obviously, as like a minority, you know, so we had our own group, and this, we didn't know about NOMA. Like NOMAS didn't find us at Temple. So we called ourselves the ABA, and it was about maybe 6 of us, you know, aspiring Black architects, ABA, right? We were like, you know, but that was our support system, and that's what we knew. We knew we had to develop a support system to kind of get through. And, you know, again, the rigors of the architectural education is what it is, and that in and of itself needs to kind of be reevaluated as far as I'm concerned. But, you know, you start with 10, you know, and then there's like 3, you know, that you graduate with. And then hopefully that 3 will stick with you on the professional side, and hopefully that 3 will get registered and still, you know, be, you know, working in the profession. So for me, I worked in the profession for about 15 years, and it came a point where I decided that I was a mentor for about 7 years with the ACE Mentor Program. And I felt as though I could do a little bit more in terms of being, you know, seen and, you know, heard, you know, if I kind of stepped outside of the office. So I made a decision as a registered architect to leave the practice. And that in and of itself was, you know, a big deal, because, oh, she's leaving the profession. You know, no, I'm not leaving the profession. I'm leaving the office so that I can go out and be seen, right? And express, you know, to students and actually show up, you know, during the day and talk to them about what architecture is. I am an architect. Look at me, you know, I can do it, so you can too. So, you know, that's my little story. Trying to spread, you know, inspirational joys to most, but now I'm definitely dedicating most of my time to mentoring and supporting, you know, organizations that are definitely exposing architecture to, you know, folks that are most definitely underrepresented in our industry.
So this brings me to my next question. So if you can see my screen, this came out from Architect Magazine, and Architect Magazine is our representatives, right? They're really for us and showcasing our work, but instead they decided to focus on a fictional character, which is Ted Mosby, if you guys have ever watched the show How I Met Your Mother. So Architect Magazine is tweeting out, when you're an architect, people say, oh, like Ted Mosby, right? And here are the 3 most popular TV and movie architects. If you know, from The Fountainhead from way back when, or the only architect I knew growing up was Mike Brady from the 60s and 70s, or Ted Mosby from 05 to 2014. So if you have a 6th grader now, they don't know any of these architects, right? There's nobody there for them. So were any of these characters your first introduction to architecture?
Well, definitely Howard Rourke, The Fountainhead. I remember watching when I was a kid. Yeah.
I watched both of them, but never thought anything of it.
No.
Oh, I used to love watching Brady Bunch because it reminded me of my own family, because we had a lot of kids running around just like Mike. I said, you know, he has a little office in the house. He doesn't really go to work, and he has a maid. What type of work does he do? And, you know, that was pretty intriguing. I was like, wow, he's an architect.
So how realistic is this, right? Like, he had a house that he designed himself and built himself. He had a family of 6, plus a maid and a dog, a stay-at-home wife, and he was able to work from home during all that chaos. And if you look at this picture, because the internet talks about it all the time, the picture behind him is his house.
Well, I think we should be thankful that they portrayed architects on TV. It's a better job than we do. And the mass sees it, at least back then. And if anybody had any inkling of becoming an architect or what an architect was, all they had to do was watch that and think they knew.
Absolutely. They're like, oh, I want to make models. That's what the students always want to do. I want to make models.
Well,
good luck.
Also, when I was young, there was a song from a rapper. His name was Rakim, and he had a line in the song. He said, "I draw a crowd like an architect." I said, oh, an architect draws crowds? I did.
I don't know any that draws crowds.
It was also, there's also another reference with my husband played a video game that had an architect as the main character. He was a dad, 2 kids. And so my husband joked, he picked up the controller. He's, look, I'm doing architecture. And he's just like, just had you move one joystick and another joystick. And he had the whole design done. And of course he did it at home. He was able to be there with his family and everything.
Well, this goes even to today, the HGTV stuff. Everybody thinks we can do it in a week. And It's just ridiculous when you go to see a client. What do you mean it's going to take you 3-4 months and it costs what? And you're going to have problems? I think in reverse, HGTV has ruined the architect and what we do.
Well, are any of them architects?
No, not at
No,
all.
no, no,
No.
But there is one good movie out there, maybe that we have the audience that you should check out, which I think is a very great movie as a first step portraying architects of color, and that's Jungle Fever. In that movie, Wesley Snipes actually was an architect. I actually know one of the architects that helped, I guess, help prepare him for the film. But in a sense, he was in an office. He was talking about his frustration working in the office with his work. They had drafting tables, laying around. They had designs on the wall. It was kind of a hustle and bustle. And I remember that movie kind of really stuck because it was kind of when I really started to work for an office. It was almost kind of what the office environment was. And, looking at, like I said, Howard worked the Fountainhead, I like that movie because it was sort of this guy's sort of frustration and all these sort of pent up anger at being an architect. And I was kind of drawn to that. The Brady Bunch is, just a Shangri-La of the world and how architects should be. And Ted Mosby was a sitcom. And, I used to get frustrated watching How I Met Your Mother because I said, I would never do that. How could he do that? And just be frustrated as an architect sitting there, how certain things could take place in that show. So there are realistic movies out there. Another good one out there is actually called The Architect. And if you Google it, it's a really good film about an architect who designed public housing and his frustration with how he had to deal with now the designs are now in the environment, how they've affected people's lives. And it has, African Americans as central characters and really cool movie. So, they're trying to get there, but like you said, Steve, we don't see it. We only see the sort of the video game or the sort of like, the HGTV stuff that people shouldn't be buying into.
So I'm glad you brought that up because, Arch Daily put out an article that says it's time to change the conception of the article, and it talks about all the movies that come out, and they did mention Jungle Fever, right? There's some other movies that talk about architects, but all of them are extremely not realistic. But more importantly, according to Hollywood, an architect is a hero, a lover, hopelessly out of touch, financially in trouble, a workaholic, or a combination of those. Specifically, is that right? Specifically, they have the same physical features, the same gender for the most part, the same race for the most part, hair color, eye color, and facial hair. So Hollywood film directors have created a distinct image of what an architect should be. So here we are as the American Institute of Architects trying to reach out to make a more diverse community, but we are hitting a roadblock so powerful, right? It's Hollywood in film and television, right? 3/4, which is 79% of the 45 films about architects, they were all clean shaven. They all had brown eyes. They had dark hair. And obviously they were all men. Very few of them were different in any way, shape, or form.
But we get back to it's our fault for not promoting what we do and trying to get out to the public. Being in AIA, National tries to do the film challenge and various other things. But how come we don't create programs within AIA in sections or the state that says, okay, let's invite the public. Let's show one of these films that Andrew was talking about. Get our hands on that and invite the public and see who comes out to view this whole film and various things like that to engage the public. And I think that's what we have to do more because all of us on the panel, we're architects. We found architecture. We love it. But many people out there don't know. And so we should be out there promoting it with things that they can understand and see.
Absolutely. But on the same token, right, following your path, if architecture actually isn't diverse, whose fault really is it, right? We're saying that film and movies depict architects as overwhelmingly male, overwhelmingly dark-haired, overwhelmingly clean-shaven, overwhelmingly, you know, cisgender fathers, and but isn't that what we're up against? Isn't that what the NOMA research and the NCARB research is saying, that we still are stereotypically what we're saying that we shouldn't be represented?
I think we should try to
They're getting tougher. The questions are getting tougher, Steve.
well,
Okay, so we have a few firm owners on the panel, right? Have you taken a good hard look at your firm, or, you know, if you hire and fire, have you taken a good look around you, and have you done your part to make the industry more diverse?
I'll be honest, on ours, we put out, if we ever need an ad out there, we take whoever can come and can do the job. If they're brown, white, yellow, pink, I don't care, as long as they can do the job. Everybody who comes says they can do the job till they sit down and you find out they can't do the job. But, you know, we try, when we put ads out there, it's who responds to it and who needs a job.
So you're saying there isn't a pool of diverse people to choose from?
Most of the time we put out, it's a wide variety of people, from women to people of color, Chinese, the Afro-American. We haven't had many people answer our ads whatsoever. I've had to go out and try to recruit.
Well, that's a good step. I mean, especially since we know that there's a very small pool of professionals in the first place.
I know when I was chief architect at Sloan Kettering, I did try to do some hires, and the amazing thing is my pool that I looked at was actually women. And
Were
actually,
you in New York City?
In New York City, before I came to New York City. Yes. So Sloan Kettering, New York City, I was a chief architect over there, and when I looked for these candidates, I had one Latina, I had a black woman, and I had an Asian woman. And all candidates were you know, very good. The candidate I actually chose to work to get the job was Dominican, and actually she worked for me for a while. She left, and now, because of that experience, she's now hiring other people of color where she's working, and she's in a position as a director of a large institution, and she's doing that part. So I think when I went to sort of look at hires, I had the ads, I had the HR department help me out, but I also said, let me look to my resource, which I was very close at the time. I've always been part of the AIA and NOMA, just to kind of let you guys know, for almost the same amount of time, 20-something years. But with NOMA, I had a real close kinship because I was mentoring people in NOMA. And whenever I was looking for or hearing about work, I would call these people up and say, hey, there's a job out there I think you guys should go for. I knew these folks had the skills. I knew their work ethic, and I would try to steer them toward the job. One good thing I like to say, Steve, is on your point, years ago, I went to actually interview at Stullen Lee in Boston, Massachusetts. And I remember going to the firm, and Stullen Lee is actually an African-American firm in Boston, very well known, done some really good work. And I remember going to the firm, and I'm looking around, and I'm asking David Lee, I says, dude, you're a black firm. Why is almost all the people working for you white? You know, and actually more white males than white females. And he said to me directly, he said, look, I'm in Boston. I'm near Harvard. I'm near MIT. These are the candidates I'm picking to work for me. I kind of shook my head. I kind of heard his point. But the fact that I was there, I think he was trying to make a change and trying to bring people of color in. But it's an uphill battle. And as Tiffany said, when our pool is, 2%, and for African-American architects, 0.3%. That is a very tiny pool to get approved candidates to go work in any firm and to move them up the ladder.
Well, it's interesting. I got in touch with an ACE mentor out of Teaneck. I don't know if anybody knows Teaneck, New Jersey at all, But she asked me, this was through Bruce Turner down in Cumberland. She had contacted the Cumberland ACE mentorship, and for whatever reason, I don't know why she went down there. It got back up to northern New Jersey, and me being AIA New Jersey president came across my desk. So I met with her, and she has 24 students, believe it or not, from 9th to 11th grade that are interested in architecture. I am thrilled. And probably 70, 80% are Afro-American and Hispanic. And we have to come up with a program, but this is a chance to get more people of color into the field. Because if they like it now, hopefully they love it and want to continue.
So we're definitely going to talk more about that, Steve. So I'm just going to put a pin in it for a second because we're going to get back to it. But I just want to kind of move on to the next.
Well, there's questions from the people out there. Have you seen that, Lauren?
There are.
So one guy asked, have you hiring team gone through any diversity training? Where do you post your jobs? Do you post at predominantly Black colleges?
That's a good question.
Well,
So does anyone want to answer that?
I don't want to answer that. I kind of wanted to go back a step.
Okay.
You know, when it comes to working for a firm, I think there's a stigmatization with African American working for mid-sized or large firms, because they feel like we're not going to hire you because we don't think that you're going to be able to do the work.
Well, how do they know?
A lot of them don't know. You know, I've been overlooked for a couple of things from firms. I was able to get a job at Gensler, which is very hard to do. And, you know, I got that based on my merit, not the way how I looked. But there are firms out there that probably wouldn't do the chance of like sitting down with someone and figuring out if they have the skill set to do the work, as opposed to like just because they're African American and just say, okay, well, you're African American, I don't think that you're not going to be able to do the work, as opposed to someone else who maybe an Asian person that are interviewing at the same time for the same job.
And they're architects. God.
No, absolutely, William. I mean, it's the firm commitment to make the investment in the person. And I've been kind of, hearing this, and especially with COVID going on, just so, firms are laying off, right? So you have like the last in, last out. So, a firm, if you had an African-American architect, understand that that was a long journey for them to get there in the first place. So I'm
Really
seeing
hard.
firms that, you know what I mean? So by the time they get to the firm door, there is years of scars and battles that they have won to get to the firm for you to even interview them to get the job. So, when a firm is like, oh, well, last in, first out, if that's the mentality, then you were never, going to make that investment, in that person, especially, if we're so-called unicorns. There's such a small pool, you never get a resume, you never do this. I think that it's time that we start really evaluating really like what the commitment is. So if the perception is that there's always going to be like a performance issue, then make the investment to help them with that, so I don't know, there's a lot of layers to this, especially like with, because we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion. So the diversity, they're in your office. Inclusion, equity, it's about retention more so than just, saying that you interviewed, 5 Black people and none of them worked out.
Correct. And just going to touch on 2 things. So going back to your point, Tiffany, it is training. And I thought I saw something in the chat with diversity thinking in the office. So basically when these candidates come through, what you have to look at them as a blank slate. You actually can't look at a resume and if the lady's name is Shaniqua, you can't say, oh my gosh, I know what that is. You can't do that. You have to say, I'm going to drill down. What's her schooling? What is her experience? Where has she worked? Has she moved up the ladder on her resume? And these are the items that, you take to hand. And when I was interviewing, one thing I would ask my candidates to bring one set of construction documents into the interview. And I would look at the CDs. If the CDs were on point and these guys had their stuff together, I'd say, how much of the CDs did you put into this? and if they said they did 80%, 90%, I'd say that's a great candidate. If they said they just stacked on some, sorry, Lauren, some bathroom details, you know, I could say, well, okay, maybe you need some more training. But going to the other topic is, where do you get these folks? Where do you find them? The resources right now, we know, for example, Will and I have been talking about the National Organization of Minority Architects. It's been around for close to 50 years. They do have a resource of interns, architects that you can go look for. It's been increasing in visibility over the years, which is great. And I think AIA too, since which is really great, you have myself and Lorianne on this panel. I mean, I think this is a first in any chapter in the country. You never have like 2 section presidents who are African American of such a, and we're a large state. But saying that, we're also a resource because we know people and we have our own job pages in our sections. We can tell people to direct them to people who are, looking for work, and, if they're of color, great. You should pick them and get them into your firm. But I think right now the flavor of the month, we don't really, and I know this has been work about what's been happening, is race is a topic now. Racial diversity is something on everybody's mind, on everybody, in every corporation. Before, it was something you had to do. Yeah, it has to be there. You have a diversity officer. It's got to be there. But now it must happen. Okay? Not that it has to happen. It must happen. So once we get out of this crisis and we really get back into it, I think firms are going to think a lot differently about who they hire. They're going to really try to focus on getting people of color, African Americans, Latina, Latinx into the workplace and diversify the profession.
So I'm going to pose a question to you guys, and then Brian has a question that I think is really important. So the first question I'm going to pose to you guys is if you had a factory that built a specific cog, and there was no one in the world that knew how to build this cog, what you would do is you would take someone that you would take a chance on someone that you thought had some raw talent, and you would mentor them, and you would teach them, and you would tell them everything that you knew, and eventually you had someone who made a cog just as good as you did. Can we say that maybe the answer to this is that all of us, everyone in AIA New Jersey and beyond, should make a commitment to 3 people of color, any gender, any sexual orientation, somebody who's an other, right? 1 K-12 student, 1 college student, and 1 intern, and say, if you don't have the opportunity to show that you could put a CD set together, I'm going to take a chance on you anyway. I'm going to tell you what I know, and I'm going to stick with you through thick and thin. And then I'm going to make sure that you're part of the pool of people that are super talented who get those opportunities. Like, can we all say that that's probably a commitment that we have to do ourselves?
I personally think that's a great idea, because you have to start somewhere and make an effort. And not everybody does.
Lauren, I think that's one of the biggest challenges we've had through our K-12 program in AIA New Jersey is having more follow through. So we've been doing K-12 programming for at least, I don't know, 35 years. Jerry Eben's been doing it, and I'm sure it's been going on longer than that. But the thing that the teachers really seek is maintaining a relationship with those children. So when we do K-12 programming, very often there's only a few kids in the group who it really clicks, because they're not necessarily pre-sorted in who participates in that event. But if we are able to come up with a way to maintain a relationship with those children who really had a positive experience with us, that would really, really be a big impact on the small little steps that we've been able to take so far.
Does anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Well, it's definitely going to take sponsors and advocates on all levels. I mean, with the, you know, the NCARB report, NOMA report, I mean, it's identifying all like the pinch points, you know, so it really does need to have like a focused, intentional level of, you know, support, you know, or at least access, you know, of support, you know, for students to kind of get them through the pipeline. We always talk about the pipeline, right? So to make sure that the pipes are connected.
So I know,
oh, go ahead, Lauren, sorry.
So I know in emerging professionals communities around the country, we always find that mentorship is a really difficult program to keep up with, because it's a full-time job for both the mentor and the mentee. And then one will always give up, and then the connection's broken, and then there's no follow through. So I know that's really difficult, and that's a problem that they're trying to solve nationwide. But I think we really need to kind of say to ourselves, if my mentee isn't reaching out, I'm just going to work harder to reach out. And I'm not going to let go. And I'm not going to let them quit. And I think that we have to make that commitment, especially at the K-12 level, where they need to see that consistency and that camaraderie. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like a multi-layered thing. You know, I think, you know, it's what we were talking about before, but on the exposure side, to then be able to have those people to mentor, you know, because I think the mentor relationship is most successful when you know, you're starting from that kind of common ground of, this is a goal that we have for the mentee to kind of make it through there. So it kind of begs the question of how do we make sure that we get those people that we want to mentor, and kind of keep them moving throughout the process. Because I think, I mean, for just what I've seen with a lot of people who are successful, there's the exposure part, there's the mentorship kind of part, someone to support you, and then there are your experiences. So I think all three of those things have to be woven together in some fashion to make sure that, you know, people can be successful.
So Lorianne, I'm glad you made that point about, like, where do I find common goals, or where do I find common interests, and where do I find people to be really a good mentor to? And that brings me to my next question, and a lot of what Tiffany and John have to say is that there are so many school districts in New Jersey alone, and the way it's set up, it's really just not, it's not conducive for us to handle it school by school. There's not enough kids in any one school. So we need to find programs that we can get behind and we can be part of and we can really push. And those programs actually already exist. And we do some work with these programs, the STEAM Tank program and the ACE Mentorship Program. And I'll let John go first because your name's up first. Please tell us about the STEAM Tank program and what you do and what you think we can do to help.
So great. I'm really enjoying this conversation because it is of great concern. I mean, part of my work is to, you know, raise the expectations and provide opportunities to the schools of New Jersey in a variety of areas. And with the STEAM Tank competition that we created, well, it's going on 5 years now. That was the exact point, is to bring some leadership skills, some problem-solving skills, entrepreneurship, and have the students be the creators. So it's about creativity, you know, and opportunities. And I think what we were talking about, I heard a lot of language being, you know, talked about this evening about opportunities and how we're going to do this and get behind it, and it's going to be small impact. So what can we do to make that a larger impact? And I think with the STEAM Tank competition, and Lauren and Stacey and Joe David and a few others have been serving as judges on STEAM Tank almost since, well, I guess the second year of the competition, and they have been wonderful. They have a component, or they're supporting a special category in the human built environment, where they're actually selecting a team that can be recognized. And this is a K-12 program. So a little history about that. And I have some ideas at the very end that I'd like to share. And I think I can actually help promote this. And one of them is we have a Facebook Live show. I'm calling it a show. It's a Facebook Live every Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock. And we feature subject matter experts. And I'd really, really like to do one with the AIA New Jersey to talk about this specific topic, because I believe this is so important. So STEAM Tank was created in 2015 in collaboration with the U.S. Army. At that point, it was a very unique collaboration where a school board and a U.S. Army recruiting battalion actually got together. We found out that we had similar goals, that we wanted to bring opportunities, as many opportunities to the school districts as possible. And the U.S. Army was having a difficult time getting into schools to recruit the smarter students, so to speak, okay, and to fill, when I say smarter, I don't mean it, I mean, they were having a hard time filling their positions in things like cybersecurity and medical and technicians. So they were looking, and they called the New Jersey and the northern coast, like that northern belt was a really difficult. They don't need anybody else in the trenches or to fight the war on the ground, so to speak. They needed the technicians, they needed those kind of folks as well. So they could not get into schools. And so what we did is, because school boards is a leadership organization, we are the training organization of all 581 districts in the state of New Jersey. It's over 5,000 board members. And I was brought in 8 years ago to start training board members in STEM and STEAM and sustainability. And I've been doing that for a while. This is the first of its kind program that's being run by a school board association. And the nice thing about school boards when running this program is that we do have those connections to all the schools. And so everything that we do, and when we feature students and when teachers win, and we have stories of student success from every school district, it doesn't matter. It's the schools of in urban, suburban, underrepresented populations, girls who are doing engineering and problem solving that you can't believe. So we have some stories, and we've hit almost 2,500 students just last year in our competition. We started out with 32 teams. Now we have over 666 teams that are participating in STEAM Tank. So it has grown in leaps and bounds. So really, STEAM Tank was originally designed to present students what we call an open-ended design challenge. And they were only given 3 things to do: invent something new that doesn't exist yet, modify an existing product to make it better, or solve a real world problem that needs resolution. That's the only thing that the students get. And the beauty of it, and I'm calling this an open-ended design challenge, the beauty of that is that the students, if given the right circumstances and provided with the right kind of facilitation by the teacher, they really can take off and use their imagination and their creativity and just really blow it out of the water. And we've seen some phenomenal inventions and ideas that are coming out of STEAM Tank. And I'll give you an example of one. It was an all-girls team as well. Oh, by the way, last year's winners were 8 of the 9 teams that placed in the competition, you know, in the top 9 teams, all of them were girls. So we have seen a lot of female participation, you know, really serving in that role of engineers and designers and creators. So it's been wonderful. So one team last year came up in an expandable shoe, of course, that has design in it. And their shoe was called a Pro Stretcher. And what they did, and STEAM Tank has a rubric where the students have to actually hit these marks on there to be judged, of course, as any other competition would have it. And one of them was to reach out to subject matter experts. And so who did they reach out to? Skechers, the shoe company. Now the shoe company actually helped them make the first prototype, and it was an expandable shoe with a peg system in the center. And Skechers now was partnering with the school district. So that's true entrepreneurism, right? And so one of the questions I had, and I think we could do a better job on STEAM Tank, is to get more lawyers involved in this, patent lawyers, because the one thing that the school didn't do is have a non-disclosure agreement with Skechers. I'm hoping that Skechers is not going to take advantage of the situation, but it was a really good idea, and I'd hate to see that go south. But that being said, a STEAM Tank does have some ideas that have really expanded to the point of, you know, they are patentable inventions. Our judges, by the way, like I said, we have Stacey and Lauren and a few others who serve on our judging panel, and they really become mentors. This is not Shark Tank, by the way. This isn't where the judges tear the students up. This is where the judges ask really good questions and support the students and actually serve as mentors, live mentors when they're on the ground and running. What we intend to do this year is to go all virtual because of obvious reasons. And we're gonna really recruit and reach out to the judges and other subject matter experts so that we could plug into the students we're building a STEAM Tank community, and in that community we're gonna have those subject matter experts support the students when they need help. And so this way, going back to how do you learn how to be an architect or a designer or other trades for that matter that's in the realm of the STEAM Tank world, is by meeting the ones who do it, listening to their stories, showing them other than what the teachers know. Because the teachers are teachers, they're not architects. Some of them may have been, some of them may be architects, past architects in former careers, and they may be teaching vocational school or career and technical education right now. But we want them to meet real people with, who can help the students get to an existing solution to their idea. And that's really most important. It's not what the teacher came up with, it's not the project, it's not going to end up in a poster board. It's going to be what the students want. And once they get ownership on that, they get inspired. They see an opportunity for them to shine. And we've seen this so many times where we have students who are the quiet students in class. They're just doing their work that the teachers provide them. But then when they're given an opportunity through STEAM Tank to say, oh, I get to create something and I get to solve a real world problem that I think matters, and they take off with it and they're given the right situations and circumstances, they really take off. And it's a beautiful thing to see a student who, and we've heard lots of testimonials from teachers, and I'm going to post some links in the chat so everybody can see some of the links that I'm talking about. But at the end of the day, STEAM Tank is about creating problem solvers and looking at careers and looking at and understanding that subject matter experts who belong to STEAM Tank or a part of STEAM Tank really can support them in many, many ways through their project, and that's so important. So again, I wanted to mention that this is open for all students in New Jersey. Everything that we do gets blasted out to all 581 districts, and but the teachers in this get a STEAM Tank playbook, which gives them some guidelines. It gives them methodologies to teach, which we usually have a more of a problem-based learning, or what I call solution-based learning. We do the engineering design loop in that. We have rubrics that the teachers can follow, and the students, they could pass that on to the students as well. So I'm going to pop in some links right here in the chat so everybody can see them real quick, just so we have them. I don't know if that's going to go to everybody, or it might just go to John. Sorry about that. If it just goes to John, could you recopy that to everybody? I don't have access to that. But anyway, I just posted some links in here, some links to videos, and some other areas. But, I wanted to circle back because I think that, I can help a little bit on this. And I know I covered STEAM Tank pretty quickly, but it has really taken off. And there's a lot of students involved in this. There's a lot of great success stories in this. And there's a lot more that we can do. And I think our best feature with STEAM Tank is collaboration. It's just because it's not just run just by us and it's not a closed thing. We do reach out to other people, and we want people to be part of this community that we're building to serve the students and the students in New Jersey, and also the teachers, because the teachers really learn from us as the subject matter experts. They might be good in math, and they might be a good language art teacher or a tech ed teacher, but they're not in industry. And they may have had some industry experience, but they need to learn from us as well. And so we're trying to build this community, and I'm hoping that the folks on this call tonight can reach out to me and plug in. I'm more than happy to plug you into, reaching out to the students and setting up appointments with them and helping them when they need help during their design challenge. We plan on launching the first virtual STEAM Tank in October. I think it's October 5th to be exact. The students will have 3 or 4 months to design a concept only. That's the way it works. They submit their concept only. They go through a preliminary judging round. If they're accepted, they go to the regionals. And that's when we'll do a virtual judging for regionals using an online rubric. And then those students will hopefully go to next year's leadership workshop. That's where our STEAM Tank finals are held. It's held in Atlantic City at the largest leadership, the school board's leadership conference at Atlantic City Convention Center. Hopefully we will be back online this next year. This year's leadership conference has been canceled in person, and it'll be all virtual. So it's the first time that we're doing probably 9,000 or 10,000 people in a virtual conference. So we'll see how that goes. But I do want to invite AIA New Jersey to be part of my Facebook Live sessions that I run every Wednesday. We can get together after this and talk about what we could talk about. I think this particular topic, and hey, what is an architect, and how do we engage the students a little bit more in this, and we can talk about what are the obstacles and what are some ways that we can actually get this out in a bigger way to the to the students and to the schools of New Jersey. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about STEAM Tank, but I know I went over that pretty quickly. Please, if you can, in your spare time, look at some of those videos and see some of the kids. And we do have a couple of interviews from teachers, and they're talking about their experience with STEAM Tank. Yeah, and we have a very diverse group of students from, I think our youngest group was a 3rd grader. And of course, we have that goes right through high school. We've also had some high school students move on to college, but they were part of that project and actually video conferenced in a few times on the regionals to be part of the team. They didn't want to let it go once they went to college, which was kind of interesting. So did anybody have any questions?
I think you're doing a great job, John.
Well, thank you, Stephen. I appreciate it.
And as AIA New Jersey president, we'd be happy to help and participate.
Well, like I said, collaboration is really the key. And I really would love to have some of your stories that you shared tonight. Teachers and students need to hear that. They need to know what, architecture really is, and what is the pathway to that, and what they could be doing now, right now in school, intentionally, not just by happenstance, and not just one day and a career day. They see an architect at a table in their school or something like that. No, it needs to be consistent. It needs to be intentional. It needs to be strategic. So how could we do that, and how can we help? And I'm all in favor of helping. We'll figure out the plan, and we can circle back after this in the weeks to come, and we'll see what we could do. And of course, you're all welcome to participate in some way, shape, or form in the STEAM Tank competition coming up in
I'd love
October.
To.
So John and I were talking earlier before the session, and I had mentioned that through judging or critiquing a 4th year industrial design project, where at NJIT those students were building a smoke detection system for people who are hard of hearing.
Mm-hmm.
I also judged the STEAM Tank competition where 6th graders were working on designing a smoke detection system for people who are hard of hearing. So I was able to connect those 2 groups together, the college students with the 6th graders, and they actually made some meaningful connection, and they actually helped each other with their projects. So I think that's really a great way that we can be part of helping the children at STEAM Tank and really make them feel that we can be part of that journey with them. So I'm going to turn this over to Tiffany to talk about the ACE Mentorship Program.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you,
Lauren.
by the way, for the opportunity for me to talk about STEAM Tank. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I will definitely talk to you more about it. I'm sure there's tons of questions.
Thanks. So the ACE Mentor Program, so ACE is an acronym. It stands for Architecture, Construction, and Engineering. So we are actually a nationwide after-school mentoring program that exposes high school students. So we're dealing more so in the K through 12 arena. And we expose them to the joys of the design and construction industry, and through collaborative joint project team collaboration, because we have the architects, the engineers, and the contractors. So what we do is we do actively recruit in individual schools. We definitely try to focus on school districts, and each affiliate is different. So again, we are a nationwide program. There are 77 affiliates, including Canada now. I, in particular, am the executive director for Greater Philadelphia, and basically that is the Eastern Pennsylvanian section. And in addition, we also have Camden and Cumberland County now under our affiliate. We're so excited for that. So every team kind of functions differently, and that's just due to the flexibility. Our mentors are all volunteers. They are all professionals coming out of industry. Again, they are all architects, engineers, contractors, interior designers, developers, pretty much a full cross section of the industry, so that we can show the students, again, the collaborative effort between an architect and engineer and really what their role is and how it plays a role in the entire built project. So we, our particular affiliate, we're going to be running our program from middle of October to May. That's typically, you know, a school year for us. And it could be on a bi-weekly basis or a weekly basis. Again, it depends on the flexibility, but we're talking group mentoring. It's definitely not necessarily one-on-one. It's a group mentor. So within a team, for an example, and a team would be no more than 20 students from different schools or one particular school. And it would be a host of maybe 3 to 6 different mentors. And again, that's the full cross section of the industry that we're hoping to get represented. So it's a pretty powerful program, in addition to exposing students and working with them either on hypothetical design projects, national challenges in terms of like design competitions. They're honestly, as mentors, they're sharing their role, their journey, their stories with the students so that the students can honestly have like a conversation, you know, about what it really takes to become an architect. You know, what does this really mean? What are my next steps after I graduate? What is architecture school really going to be like for me? And on top of that, we also offer scholarships. So again, every affiliate is different, but you know, we show the kids a good time, you get them excited, you get them interested, you get them connected with a network in the industry at a high school level. So my God, how priceless is that? So they're connected to the industry, we get them, you know, to college, you know, we kind of put some money in their pocket. And then that's that, right? That's that. So this, as I've painted this nice glossy picture of ACE, I'm going to talk to you as a director of communications for ACE National now. You know, we talk about a lot about collaboration, and John, that project, your steam tank, is beyond amazing. I am most definitely going to connect with you after this. What I feel like our program could benefit more is with collaborations, is with synergies, is with other programs, because the diversity that we do have in our program is probably, again, the extent of the effort that each individual affiliate is going to take. So for example, if I'm working in Philadelphia, you know, there are a lot of schools, there are a lot of school districts. My affiliate is not only just, you know, Center City, Philadelphia, Philadelphia County. You know, again, I do have Camden, I do have Cumberland County, but I also have the surrounding suburbs, because guess what? It's a lot easier to get support, you know, from a suburban school than it is, you know, from the school district of Philadelphia or an urban environment. And again, that could be a whole nother call. But, you know, just understanding that the level of support that I have from a school, and that's in terms of parents, that's in terms of the school itself, that's how I'm going to be able to recruit the students and retain them in the program. So I can honestly say that I would like to definitely look a bit further into our recruitment efforts, just in terms of getting more students of color, more Black students into our program, not only to come into the program, to retain them. And then once I get them into college, or once I actually can support them with scholarships, then who can I work with to support them through their college years? Because that's going to be the pivotal, you know, moment of truth, you know, whether or not they're actually going to succeed and be able to give you a resume, Stephen, you know, to come, you know, to your firm. And that's why I'm saying there's so many levels and there's so many, you know, pinch points along the path. I'm handling K through 12, but it's still not enough. I need someone that's going to handle, you know, K through 8, you know. So, you know, project pipeline, you know, NOMA, that's where maybe you guys can come in and take a look at it and say, okay, well, you have this group of students, you know, if I pass them off to you, you know, ACE in the 9th grade, let's see how we could work together to kind of, you know, maintain some type of relationship, you know, with the students. And we literally we were talking about that in the beginning, you know, so if it's leaving my hands at, you know, at 12th grade year, who's going to pick it up? You know, is that NOMAS? Is that AIAS? you know, who is that's going to be able to kind of continue, you know, the support or the advocacy for the students. And then once they graduate, hey, AIA, you need to embrace them with you know, with open arms, you know. So, you know, that the ACE Mentor Program, and I can honestly say, because I, you know, held memberships, you know, in multiple organizations, and I know that ACE hasn't necessarily got the best rep. You know, it definitely, you know, in terms of PR, and I can honestly say that I was a mentor in the program, and I saw, you know, difficulties with getting the, you know, appropriate demographic, you know, attracted, recruited, and retained in the program. So that's why when I became the executive director, I made a pretty strong effort to, you know, make sure that, you know, we were attracting students that really truly could benefit from the program. So that's, I guess, my little piece. How can we work together to connect the pipes?
Hey, Tiffany, I just have a question, whether it's appropriate or not. When the ACE mentor lady from TINA came in, she hit me with a curveball. She said some of these students, one, they may have problems of homelessness,
yes,
or abuse,
yes,
or various other things. And
absolutely.
You know, I did not know how to react to that because I never even thought about that going into their ACE mentor program, that some of these kids come from very difficult backgrounds.
Absolutely, they do. And that is a challenge because as an after school program, a lot of the students in the demographic they were looking to recruit, you know, they may have to go home to take care of siblings, to have a part-time job. So, you know, it's difficult. We're battling a lot of different forces, you know, and time and energy, you know, when it comes to students, and not to mention personal, you know, difficulties. And so that's why we're coming in as an ear, not necessarily to be a social worker by any means, but, you know, to at least offer, you know, an option, you know, to offer some type of inspiration, like say, hey, if you are creative, I understand when you have a lot of things going on, but why don't you pick up a sketchbook? You know, why don't you, you know, just start thinking about things a little differently, you know, thinking about like, you know, in terms of coming to architecture. And that's one thing I try to start explaining to my students. You know, again, I told you guys, you know, oh, you're good at math, you're good at, you know, art, you could draw, you know, no, are you a good problem solver? Do you like to figure things out? Do you like to bring order to chaos? You know, maybe architecture is the profession for you, you know? So just kind of spinning it around a little bit, you know, to kind of, you know, again, we didn't have the luxury of having like it sugar coated, you know, no one knows what an architect is, but everybody knows what a lawyer, a doctor, you know, because it's been on TV, it's glossy, it's sexy, right? You know, so I don't know, how do we break that? How do we cross that threshold?
Well,
You know, go ahead.
well, I think that, you know, and there's literally, I think there's a couple of 100,000 students in New Jersey that go hungry quite a bit. They have issues with, you know, getting meals. And we also have over 100,000 students, I believe, and I know the correct statistic, that do not have access to internet. Even during COVID, there was some huge disconnect in some areas, and that was difficult to teach without having access to technology. So, but I think what they need to see us and the students is as people, as problem solvers too. Yes, as architects, of course, that's what you do in your vocation, but we have to model what we want them to be, right? If they want to be problem solvers, we have to show them how to solve their own problems. And that's why I think STEAM Tank is so popular. And I'm going to go back to STEAM Tank because it's a K-12 program, is that they see themselves as problem solvers and coming up with solutions on their own. And so if they are having a hard time getting food, well, how do we solve that problem? Like, and I think that's what we can help students, you know, by being those mentors and teach them to be really, really great problem solvers in their world. They don't have to solve a problem on the other side of the planet. They have enough going on right in their own world, whether it's in their own home, in their own community, in the state. And we start where we live. And so I think that's what we all on this call really do pretty well. These are all problem solvers at the, you know, at the beginning of your day. You're problem solving and you're designing and you're creating. And that's, I think, what we could really bring to students, even for those students that have some real serious challenges, because they just need a little hope. A little inspiration goes a long way.
That's a good point. Because one thing between John and Tiffany, what you mentioned is another thing that will present itself is the socio-economic issues that are affecting these young people. when we did K through 12 in the Newark and suburban section of K through 12 last year, we went to University High School at Newark. And I remember there was a couple of students in there who, you know, having tough times. I mean, one kid was having a tough time just keeping up during that time. It was late in the day. I also remember doing a career day in Paterson, New Jersey, and seeing some of those students, you know, talking to them, just asking them, you know, what do you know about architects? Hear a little bit about their lives. And some of them had real, you know, tough things to deal with at home. I mean, either with, you know, taking care of a sick parent or taking care of other, you know, of their siblings. And this all affects a kid when he wants to now branch out into this thing called architecture, which when you get into it, it's a lot of effort. It's effort and money. I mean, just the license exam alone, when you tell a young kid, yeah, you got to take about this 9-part exam, but this kid doesn't know this 9-part exam isn't free. And when they think about the study material, the course, I mean, right now we have sections, and our Newark section is right now working on just having a bank of study material for those who need it. And, you know, we have scholarships and everything out there for these young people who want to really pursue that licenseship path. But socioeconomic is really the big thing we have to think about here, and also push that agenda with also, as I spoke earlier, the agenda on race and everything that's going on right now.
So I do want to say that I participated in the Camden ACE Mentorship Program. So we had a lot of students that came to our office every Thursday at 4 o'clock. And it was a great experience. They were very happy to be there. And all I can say is we did feed them a lot. That was a big part of the event, was making sure that they all got an after-school snack, which ended up being like really interesting because they had never tried some food. So they would make requests. They were like, we've never had sushi before. Can you bring sushi? Or we've never had this before. Can you bring it in? And it, you know, not only are we exposing them to construction and architecture and engineering, and we had some really amazing volunteers that helped them do projects together. But also, you're just letting them forget about their problems for a little while and refocusing that energy somewhere else. And there's something else that I want to talk about is portfolios. So we're talking about K to 12, right? So the next step after K to 12, if you get a child inspired and you say, you know, have you caught the architecture bug? The next step is college. I know when I went to NJIT, they did not have a portfolio requirement, but over the years, they go back and forth and back and forth. Is a portfolio requirement going to be something that's so insurmountable if you can figure out how to get a child to apply for college and to get accepted at college and to find financial assistance, whether it's student loans or what have you? There's that extra thing, that portfolio requirement for a lot of schools. Do you think that that would stop a lot of children who maybe don't have access to an enormous amount of art classes or don't have access to an enormous amount of things? I think, you know, the ACE mentorship, they end up with a project, STEAM Tank, they end up with a project. So as long as we help them document it for a portfolio, they would at least have one thing. Do you guys think that a portfolio requirement is a roadblock for K to 12 students to go to college?
Well, since no one else bringing it up, I'm of the opinion, if you love architecture, you find a way to do it.
Yeah.
No matter where you're at or what you have. As William was saying, when he was young, he got cardboard and put things together. I mean, a portfolio can be anything that is creative. And if you're in love with architecture, you find a way, no matter what it is. As William said, you know, you can find cardboard, you can find grass outside. You can find anything if you're creative enough to put it together and get a portfolio together. But I'm probably one of the few here who think a portfolio is important.
No, I think I agree with you, Steve, because when I went to NJIT, I think I had to put together a portfolio as well. And I don't even think I understood what it took to put together a portfolio at the time. But if you're eager enough to do it, you'll find a way. You know,
And also, they're not always looking for drawings
Right.
as a portfolio when they're reviewing it. It's your creativity. How do you show creativity? And it's many ways to show creativity.
yeah,
Yeah.
believe it or not, I added a poem to my portfolio.
Awesome.
Do you want to read that to us tonight?
I actually like what Joshua said in the comments, that portfolios can help disadvantaged students get a leg up. If their grades are not great, a portfolio can illustrate their thoughts and dreams.
Right.
So, you know, that's pretty spot on, you know.
But help me.
Yeah.
I got these cards. Love it.
Yeah, I agree with the portfolio or documentation, even if it's not as structured as we think a portfolio should be. I really do think that it does demonstrate creativity for students, and it may give them a leg up. And I think more and more colleges are actually looking at that now to show not just that they can just pass the test, because we know that the skills that a student can have, far exceed what they could probably do on a test, right? We know that. I'm not a big advocate for test taking. I want to see experiential learning. I want to see them design, build, create something that shows what they know and what they're really passionate about. And I think that colleges and other places are going to be looking at what they're passionate about, and they might want somebody who like that to be in their organization or in their company or in their college, who has a portfolio and has documented even the smallest things. Like I'm going to give you an example. We had transition from STEAM Tank, the challenge, to STEAM Tank at home, and we created a bunch of design challenges. Now, if the students took those things on and actually created something from those design challenges, they can go into a portfolio and they could be documentation. So there's many, many ways. It doesn't have to be a structured program to go into a portfolio. It could be something that they did in school that was creative, that they solved the problem, something along those lines that, we're looking at, the skill sets that people are going to be looking at the students, and those portfolios can actually demonstrate those skill sets by their creativity. So I think portfolios could really help a lot.
I think, John, what you just said, the passion of a person is going to get them through this, but I think
Yes.
you have to be told portfolio is not what you think it is, or if they have no idea what it is, it can be many different things. And that could be one of the stumbling blocks for somebody who wants to put portfolio together, but they don't have any architectural drawings or design something, but they designed many other things.
So what, right? You can learn how to do that formally, but if you have creativity and passion, right? And somebody looks at a portfolio and sees music, or somebody mentioned poetry. Okay,
Yeah.
poetry. What if they created a video, right? These are all things that helps design, right? Design just doesn't have to be on a piece of paper that's just static. It could be video, it could be music, it could be poetry. It could be something that moves somebody in a direction that says, wow, that's really cool stuff. It doesn't have to be in a box.
Did anybody here not love architecture? Because if you didn't love architecture, you never got through 5 years of school.
True.
Your help.
But
I was going to say that I think the task of putting together a portfolio outside of what you're already doing with your typical high school academics, it also is a good way to get your feet wet on the rigor of what the college experience in the architectural major is going to be like. So unlike other disciplines where you might not choose your major till the end of your sophomore year in college, you are jumping right in when you're an architecture major. And I think preparing a portfolio and, pulling things from your passions, your hobbies, your family experiences, your home life into that creative book that speaks to who you are and what your, where your imagination takes you really is exactly the kind of experience you need to go through in order to be ready for college. So while I do agree with Lauren that may be a stumbling block for some people who, maybe their guidance office doesn't understand what a portfolio preparation is. So there's no one at the high school level helping them to get that together. That could be a stumbling block, but I think I think you could go into shock if you started off an architecture major in college without having some of those experiences to help you get ready for that.
But most of the people who are inquisitive, I find, ask a lot of questions, and they find their path, whether their counselor tells them or not. Like when I was younger, I was so eager, and I learned architecture by my eagerness, and no one ever even told me anything about it.
But one thing I know when I was a kid, just going back to the kid stage, I like to draw a lot. And going back to portfolios, when I was teaching at Pratt in the late 90s, I taught a class where I was teaching my students to go digital with their portfolios. Back then, everybody was still doing nice drawings and beautiful renderings and putting them in 11 by 17 carry case. And I watched that transition from the hard copy to the digital copy. And recently I did, a portfolio review the other day, and kids were bringing their iPads, and they had, animation, they had stories, they had videos, they had a little bit of music. And like you said, Steve, the love for architecture was in it, but it was also creative. And to think that if a student, like I think one of the chat questions were, if the student doesn't have a strong, say, GPA or grades there, their creativeness that shows in creating that portfolio in a digital format really transcends where they want to go in this profession. And I mean, I've had people submit now for resumes rather than just submit, a page resume and say, here's my link. Here's my link. Check my link out. My video, my thing, everything's on it. And you'll see the whole animation and bio on this person. It's great.
So Troy put in a comment, so I'm going to read that. It says, as the AIA, oh, I'm sorry, that was Josh. But here's Troy's. My college made you reapply after the first year with a portfolio. That way you had a set of projects from first year. This is double-edged though, because you are dumping students after spending a year on the program. What do you guys think of that?
My school did that. Temple did it. You had to reapply. And if you didn't make it, you had to get your Bachelor of Science. But if you were accepted, then you got your Bachelor of Architecture at the time.
I don't understand that. Why would you have to reapply if you got into architecture the first year? Makes no sense.
That's where all the diversity went.
Josh put a statement in here. As the AIA, we should put ourselves out there to help kids make their portfolio and be a mentor. How can we connect our membership with the students that need help?
Well, I think it's through Think Tank, it's through K through 12, and various things like that. ACE Mentorship Program.
The ACT-SO program from NAACP. We do stuff like that with the NAACP. We have the program called ACT-SO where I've mentored students at a high school level for the design competition that they hold every year. And so you're given a large amount of work to do in a very small amount of time. And actually, none of them knows what to do in terms of putting together all the drawings and how to present it and what to say. And it's a bit of work for not only for the students, but for the mentors as well.
If the folks on this call tonight want to help me put together a template of what a portfolio could look like and all of the diverse things that can go in it, I can add it to the Think Tank playbook, and that goes out to all the teachers who are participating. We can also bring that up when we do our Facebook Live, is to get that out there so that's recorded and so that it can get blasted out too, as to why the importance of a portfolio, and here's some of the elements that can go into a portfolio. So I'm open.
I think that's huge. I think we're going to take you up on that offer.
Okay, good.
Philip writes, if we want to promote architecture to students K through 12, but are not satisfied with the way Hollywood and society interprets us, how do we want to sell architecture to the youth? How do you explain the expansiveness of architecture and the unisexness of most of the work we do?
Make it a Marvel movie. That'll work.
Sure will.
Good.
I think one thing that's important to weave in here as well, two things. One, I think we need more architecture in the communities where we're trying to attract people that is quality architecture. So I think if someone's not feeling like they can mentor, they're not feeling like they can support someone one-on-one, I think in the work that we do, has to reach more people in a quality kind of way, that you know, our community centers, all these other places that people go that aren't the Starchitect image of a building, those types of buildings that solve problems, that you know, give people places where they have refuge, you know, as another community, another place to be. Those projects need to happen and be quality projects to actually show, you know, with our work, advertise that this is architecture and attract people that way. You know, it's not as direct as getting a person, but I think that's equally important, because I think a major element to kids' success when they go into these programs and make career decisions is also their family and their parents. I think those people need to see architecture, understand that, you know, they may not be architects, they might not be hiring an architect, but they see that their kid has these qualities and can identify with that. So I think part of our effort has to be to actually reach the communities themselves that the kids are in, and have that environment and kind of support them and couch them to want to become architects. You know, even though I've had the opportunity to mentor through ACE, I've also had kids who couldn't be an ACE for whatever reason, and their parents have sought me out. And I've spent time with them separate than ACE, you know, gave them tours of the offices that I've been in, talked to them, chatted with them, kept up with them as they went into their careers, because, you know, parents are actually looking for those kind of connections. I was really surprised the other day that a mom actually looked up the list of registered architects in New Jersey, saw that I lived in her town. She went on Facebook, saw that I was African American, and then contacted me on Facebook Messenger. And she said, "Hey, my daughter is looking to go to architecture school in the fall." And I've had a couple of interesting experiences like that, where the parents are really the ones pushing. Their kid's a little bit shy to go talk to someone and reach out to someone, but the parents are like, "No, I'm going to find a mentor for my kid." So I think we need to find ways to, you know, give parents the ability to do that, and be able to connect with us, you know, even if their kid isn't ready to, but they're supporting their kid. They know, they see architecture and know that this is part of what their kid can do, and that they're helping their kid move forward. So I think it's layered in that way as well, that we have to be part of that conversation, as well as the direct one-on-one conversation with students who are actually found and in programs.
Right. That Lorianne, just to piggyback off of you, you were sought out because they, of course, they were looking for you, and that, and representation, and that's like the biggest key, and that's, I guess I can honestly say, you know, to you guys, your family now, we've been together for a couple minutes. But that's my biggest challenge in ACE. I need more Black architects. I need more Black engineers. I need a more diverse mentorship to show the students that, yes, you can do that, because it's still not enough, you know. How I'm structuring my program. So in the city, you know, the kids are actually expected to come to, you know, the city. So they're expected to leave school, find their way, whether it's bus, train, car, whatever, you know, to make their way to Center City. Some of these kids have never left a 6 square block radius, you know, of their community. Like, this may be the first time that they have ever like made their way to a city, let alone like a corporate office, you know, with the doorman, and you had to show your ID. So it's an absolute culture shock. So the least we can do is offer some bit of comfort, you know, to kind of help, you know, ease them into, you know, because it really, corporate culture is, you know, it's intimidating for me. And I can say that I've been groomed, you know, and I've been, you know, trained at this point, you know, to know how to carry myself. But some of these students just don't, you know, and it's difficult. So that in and of itself is a barrier that we kind of need to kind of work through.
So there's a couple other questions. Has anyone's hiring team gone through any diversity training?
Nope.
We did a lot of diversity training at Gensler, and that was because they wanted to make a commitment to trying to be diverse. I mean, I worked in the New York office, and there was 700 people there, and I was able to put on a program for the African American people that worked there, and come to find out there was at least a total of 12 out of 700. So, I mean, the programs are, they're trying to do it, but it doesn't look like it's happening because the amount of people that are there, or the amount of people that, or quality people that they've hired. So I believe it can work. It's just a commitment. And when I was at Gensler, they were working on that commitment to make that happen. So it really just depends on the firm itself, the individual firms, see if they would like to pursue that.
Does anybody on this call have statistics on what percentage of college students in architecture are African American compared to those in the profession? Like, I know we're like 50-50 men to women, but then they drop off when we talk about licensed architects. What is the ratio? What is the change between, like, what percentage of architectural students are currently African American compared to those we see in the profession? Does anyone know?
All right, so I have up here the article from Architectural Record talking about NCARB's 2020 numbers, and I'll put the link in here. But, and I'll read this because I wasn't planning on talking about it, but in the realm of architecture education, 82% of all licensure candidates in 2019 held a degree from a school accredited by the NAACP. Okay. In a reversal of a historic trend, graduates of non-accredited programs completed the national licensing exam some 4 months sooner than students with NAACP accredited degrees. That was 48 compared to 54% pass rate. Accredited schools saw a 2% increase in matriculation. Some 7,700 students evenly divided between men and women, and split 48% to 51% between BARC and MR. In total, just over 26,000 students were enrolled in a NAACP accredited program. Of those students, 51% were men, 49 women. Gender parity of graduates declined by 1%. Here we go. Gender representation and diversity increased among candidates who completed the AXP, which is after you graduate, you do your internship. In 2019, the proportion increased by 2 percentage points for women to 42% and 3 percentage points of people of color to 37%. The increase in non-white candidates was largely seen among those in Asian or Hispanic heritage. There is no change in African American individuals.
Thank you, Lauren.
Yeah, no worries. So I will put in the link the NCARB data that just came out and the NOMA data that just came out that really like kind of talks about all of these things. But at the end of the day, and the reason why we all came together to do this panel, and the reason why they're broken up into 6 different phases is because there are roadblocks at K-12. There are a whole other set of challenges. If you mentor and you give scholarships and you get through the portfolio process and you get to college, then there's a whole other set of roadblocks. You know, in architecture, students that choose to work while they're in an architecture program tend to not finish. And that's hard because, you know, Stacey, you talked earlier about the rigor of an architecture program. I know when I went to school, they basically told me up front, like, don't even think about trying to work and do this because this is a 24/7, 5-year pursuit. How do you guys feel about that?
Well, I definitely worked through college. My bachelor's degree at Pratt in Brooklyn, and also when I went to Columbia grad school, I was working. It is very difficult. And as Steve said before, you got to really love architecture to keep going. I had to work because I didn't have full-time scholarships, nor did I have enough financial backing to put me through school. Actually, when I attended Pratt, I was a commuter student. So I would take the subway back and forth to school. And the same thing when I was in Columbia, between driving my car in the subway and working was kind of how I did it. It takes a lot for a student to do that. And I can understand if a student's work life really gets in the way of getting through the program, getting through the grades, getting through the projects that architecture school does provide, it can throw you off. But I do know if you do get through it, it does make you stronger. You're able to multitask a lot better when you're actually in the profession now, and this is all you do is you're doing architecture. But it's a tough call, Lauren. I mean, it's tough for some schools. I think they got to stress it because they want the students to focus on learning the curriculum. But for some students, it's not a choice. I mean, they don't have enough to get a scholarship and they got to work. You know,
Yeah.
But
For me, it was it was just that I really had to work throughout my whole college. I remember I was working night shift at a supermarket and leaving at 7 o'clock in the morning to make it to my class in Newark at NJIT at 8 o'clock, and did a full, school day, and slept in my car in the parking lot to go to work the next night. I literally never slept in my dorm room. I think I slept maybe on Friday night. That was probably the only night I slept. I made my bed up on Sunday and it stayed made the whole week. So I would either sleep in my car or sleep underneath the design desk and work. I would literally be working overnight, night shift, go right into classes, go right into work. And then, I think my junior year was when I started working at an architectural firm, but I was always working throughout college.
That's love of architecture.
The whole trip. And even now, I can't even sleep. I mean, I do like 2, maybe 4 hours, and I think insomnia. So yeah, it's been a journey. I mean, for someone like me to come from where I came from to make it to where I am here, it's a lot. And so when I look at students that are trying to do it, and I will help any student out. I've mentored multiple amount of students. I would help them out financially or physically because I know how hard it is. And if you're an African American and you're at this point, you just need that little push over to get over to the next point.
Yeah.
So knowing how hard it is, I think most of us on this panel are parents. Knowing how hard an architecture degree is and knowing that it's a risk reward, right? It's a very expensive degree and it takes you a very long time to earn the money to pay back your loans. And I know that's a real struggle for people. The more tuition increases. As parents, if you have K-12 children at home or even college kids at home, would you recommend architecture to your children?
I would if they loved it, but they don't, so I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, my son, he's 6 now, and he constantly talks about being an architect. He builds stuff, he's drawing. I tell him, look, if it's a phase, it's great, but if you want to do it, this is what daddy has to do. I show him my drafting table. I show him all the drawings that I have. I show him stuff in CAD. He goes crazy over that. But it's up to the
developer.
Yeah, that's his thing. I told him, make the money. Daddy's working every day to kind of be an architect and trying to bust through the day every day. But when you're a developer, you just, the money comes in.
Right.
So, but he does love it. And again, it's up to a kid. A kid can have it for a while and something else goes, comes in their path. They want to do something else. But so far, so good.
Yeah, it's one of many things that my son is interested in. He's 5. He's been interested in architecture, commenting on it since he was 2, but I think the big thing is just the exposure and a fair exposure so that he's aware of what it is and let him make a choice himself. But I think even still, just even if he doesn't become an architect, just growing up, growing an advocate for architecture is just as important. So I think even if I wouldn't want to steer him away from it. I want him to embrace it, and if he ends up doing it, or at least being on the periphery that can be an ally for the profession, I think is important.
Oh, absolutely. Allies are most definitely important. So I got a 1-year-old and a 6-year-old. I don't know.
I'm almost there. 5 and 0. I have 5 and 0, so I'm almost 6 and 1.
5 and 0, 6 and 1. So, it absolutely, I'm going to be a strong, advocate for whatever, he wants to do, these 2 boys, whatever they want to do. But, I'm not going to push the issue, but, in terms of like architectural education, as hard as it was, I got to say, in my opinion, it's the most well-rounded education. It taught me how to think, it taught me how to be a lot more things than really what people think it is. So if he wants to be an architect, I will absolutely support him in his efforts. So.
Totally agree. Architecture.
Well, I have 2 nephews.
Ask the question and know where to get the answer.
I have 2 nephews and they're interested in architecture. And I kind of sort of pushed them into it a little bit, but I know how hard it was for me, and I probably wouldn't wish it on them. So, whatever that they want to be, as long as it's somewhat intermingle with architecture, if they wanted to be like a city planner or an interior designer or something that intermingles with it. But if they want to do architecture, they're into it. So as they start to develop, I'll see where they want to sort of sway more to. But if they want to do it, I'm more than happy to help them along the way, so they can avoid the pitfalls that I had to endure.
Good luck.
So we are almost out of time, so I'll let everybody give like a final thought. But before I do that, I'll just let everybody know that we will have this recording on the AIA New Jersey website for everybody who couldn't make it. And along with that, we will put the S.T.E.M Tank links that you saw today, links for ACE Mentorship Program, and I encourage all of you to participate with either or both, whatever you can do to help. And some other ideas that we had about the portfolio, about reaching out to John Henry and helping put together a portfolio package so that students know. We will do all of that, and I hope all of you return next week when we really dive into architecture at the university level, because there's a lot of stumbling blocks there. So please join us next week. And I guess, yeah.
Lauren, can I ask for some volunteers?
Yeah, absolutely.
AIA New Jersey is working on a new initiative where we're going to be reading stories. We're creating videos, live stream Zooms, reading stories to children about architects and architecture. And we're looking for a very wide range of readers. So if anybody is interested in reading a book, we're putting together our book list right now. And I've been working with some librarians to figure out, what the format and model would best be successful. But you can film it right at your own house, and we'll send you the book, or assist you with or if you have a favorite book that inspired you as a child, that would be perfect. But if anyone wants to volunteer to read a book for a Zoom video, please get in touch with me.
I will, Stacey.
Thanks, Steve.
All right. So anyone, final thoughts?
I think this is a great idea, what we're doing here, and I think we can't stop here. Every one of us is doing something to help, whether it's in the ACE, any kind of program. I think we have to recruit fellow architects who aren't as energetic and want to get out there, that are just sitting on their ass, excuse my language, and get them into it too. And get everybody to help us, because you see the same faces, AI New Jersey, or your sections. It's always the same faces. And they've done, from president to secretaries or any committee, but it's the people who don't participate and just sit on the periphery that we've got to get involved and promote.
Yeah, I agree with Steve. I think being part of organizations for a very long time, actually almost 30 years. I've been with NOMA for like 27 and AIA for about 22. You see kind of the same people floating around. But I do notice that in the last 10, 15 years, I have seen a lot of young people come into these organizations. They are changing. And I think the premise is, especially for people of color, African Americans, is to really put the premise out there that sort of now is the time. Our communities are being affected, and as architects, we can influence by what we build in our communities and tell these people, you want to influence your community? You want to have something of direct impact? Become an architect. And you could do something in your community, whether it be part of a park, part of a community center, and make something positive. And that's the message I keep preaching. You got to give back if you want to do something.
Hear, hear.
Just make yourself available, make yourself, known, and just be available. Seriously, just be an advocate, be a resource, everyone. And, as difficult as, everything is going on right now in the world, I am kind of blessed that we are able to have these platforms, able to have these conversations, because this type of conversation usually only happens every February. So it's kind of cool that we can talk about this now. And, not only that, but folks are, they're listening, they're not just hearing it, so. And so I'm really, thankful again that, Lauren, you invited me to this platform because,
Lauren, thank you.
As a resource as well.
Oh, well, my pleasure.
So I
John?
posted the Facebook page, the STEAM Tank Facebook page. So in that reading project, we can also post things there. So that gets out to the STEAM Tank community, the teachers, and some of the students that are following that. So please, feel free to post on that or join it, like it, and then we blast things out there as well. I think tonight was really good. I mean, it gave me a little insight on how I could kind of, weave it into the educational world. So, please feel free to reach out to me individually. We can have conversations and we can continue this conversation. So I just want to thank everybody who was on the call tonight and thank you for inviting me. So any way I can help, please feel free.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
William, any final thoughts?
Well, there's a lot of talented kids that are in low-income areas. And I believe if we figure a way to get to them, we can see a change that will be a ripple chain throughout the industry. If we're able to capture that raw talent, we can change the world, because it's there. I know because I came from there. And, no one man is an island. And if we're able to, that's why I'm grateful for platforms like this. We can strategize and come up with ideas and plans to maybe capture this and do something, wonderful with it. I really appreciate Lauren for inviting me and everyone else on the panel. Thank you for, your input. This is great and awesome. I love it. And I look forward to doing more of these and also coming up with a viable solution so we can, absolutely put something together to reach out to some of these people and these students and change the world.
Come on over to AI New Jersey, William. We'll give you the platform.
I'm here. I'm going to I think I'm in Newark now, right? Newark Suburban?
Yeah, Newark and Suburban, yeah.
No soliciting.
I'll be calling you next year to move on up.
I'll be there.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you so much for our panelists and our attendees and to ACE and to Steam Tank and to everyone. And again, I hope I see you guys in 2 weeks for when we do this again and we talk about the tough questions about the B arc and the M arc. So thank you guys so much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.